In the past few videos I showed you mainly how I make music, so I thought let's switch it up today and show you a few of my favorite plugins and tools to make music. So through the years, of course, I use lots of different stuff and I switch back and forth with different tools that I like to use. So today I wanted to highlight a few of the tools and plugins inside Ableton Live, the DAW that I use, that I like the most. So let's start off with a small one, but a really great one, which is the Transient Master from Native Instruments. The Transient Master is a great tool to basically make loops, at least the way I use it, make loops snappier. So I got here this hi-hat loop, and then when I play it on its own, it's just a nice hi-hat loop. There's a lot of rise and stuff in there, but let's say you want it a bit more snappier, and I always feel like once it's snappier it's a bit more professional sounding. Bring back the sustain, add some attack before. For me, this tool really helps a lot when I layer different kinds of percussion and drums and hi-hats together, so a really cool tool. Next up, Albion One, which is a content library that I use for almost all my cinematic stuff. The cool thing with Albion One is that it has a lot of things in there. It got strings, it got brass, it got drums. I mainly use it for the strings because those I really like as ensemble patches. For instance, these long ones. Or you could go for some shorter ones, some staccato ones. Spiccato, staccato. I mainly use Albion One for the ensemble patches to basically have a backdrop for the more expressive layers like the cellos, the violins, the air hoops, which I mentioned in the previous video. Albion One's a great tool, a little bit on the pricey side, but for the amount of tracks that I use it on, it's well worth the price. Now this next one might come to no surprise for anyone who is in the electronic dance music business, and that's Serum 2. What I love about Serum is how versatile it is. You can make all kinds of sound from pads, synths, bass lines, crazy sound effects, and also it's really well integrated, for instance with Splice, where you can just drag and drop sounds into Serum. I loaded up one of the presets of my own to show you my next favorite plugin, which is the Pro-Q 3. Again, this is of course something that's being used by a lot of people. And recently I've been using the dynamic EQ a lot, because when I work in dance music, techno, sometimes hardstyle, big room, a lot of these leads, these harsh leads, they tend to fill up in the mid-high range. So using a dynamic EQ, you can really easily duck when the frequencies get too bloated and too high. And as you can imagine, when you start stacking leads, it's much more natural sounding when you do it dynamically. The great thing about a dynamic EQ over a static EQ is that it only ducks when it needs a certain threshold. So that's great to, in the end, make a more natural, balanced mix instead of just unnecessarily cutting away frequencies, which I really prefer. Sticking with this lead for now, the next one I want to highlight, and that's basically the OG Ableton reverb. Now, of course, everybody who knows me personally, who knows my music, there's a lot of reverb going on in there. But what I usually do is I route the reverb to a send the signal to there, and then I sidechain it towards the input signal, which is the Serum's channel. And then what I do is I take away the low end, the high end, lots of dry wet, actually 100% dry wet, and lots of decay time. And this way you can get a really cool ducking reverb. And you can even go a little bit crazier if I just put some extra volume on here, because it's actually getting ducked when it's being played. This way the sound will still cut through the mix nicely, but have a really wide and really big feel. And the reason also when I tried lots of different reverb, but the reason I still use with the Ableton reverb is for me it gives a really natural reverb. I don't want to have a lot of different character added. I just want to take the character from the input sound and just accentuate that with the reverb. Enough about synths, let's talk a bit about what I do for texturing, because I like to do a lot of textures in my music, and one of my go-to tools for that is Arcade. Arcade is basically your inspiration tool. There's a lot of different specs that you can find in here, and the awesome thing I find is that you can specify a certain key. For instance, like we are maybe in, let's say, D minor. Now all these individual sounds are in D minor and they're all individual loops. What I could do then is just have this recorded. And you see it says F, but it's basically just the loop that's being selected. So let's make this a loop. And then you can, for instance, take like a Reese bass. And then play some notes underneath. And as you can hear, with just these small things, just the bass that plays like a simple pattern, with the addition of the texture loop already gives the really cool flavor, which you can then build upon. I have another really cool one, which is called a Transgate, which basically does as the name says, it gates input. And what I usually like to do is when you hear some of these recent hyper-techno tracks as well, you take a vocal, crank the kilohertz Transgate on there, and you got a really cool little flavor to it. And you can easily take different kind of rhythm, different kind of swings. And it's a really cool way to just add some movement. I like to do when you got, for instance, a vocal track, put some reverb on it, put the Transgate after it, and then have it as an extra layer underneath the vocal, which is, I think, a really cool way of adding some extra depth to your vocal. I have one more thing to show you, which is good old Endless Smile. And Endless Smile, we in the dance music scene use it a lot. I think almost every producer I know uses it. Basically just an extra tool to build up your progressions towards the drop. And that's just one main knob. Of course you can switch around these ones, but I usually use it just on the soft one. And it basically just excites it towards the end. And of course you can also, if I would take a snare for instance, I've heard better snares, but for now this will work. So we just take a snare, 16 notes. Alright, put the Endless Smile on there. And when we crank up the intensity, now, if you want to go one step further, use a transpose. Transpose it up to 12. Want to record this as well. Put it like this. Command B, also something I learned. Command B, record it. And you already got a cool build-up start with just a snare and the Endless Smile. These are currently my favorite plugins. Of course, there are many more that I use, but these are my main ones at the moment. I would like to know which are your favorite plugins at the moment and which plugins should I check out, which I haven't yet already. So do let me know in the comments below, because I'm always on the lookout for cool sounds, plugins, tools, you name it. That's all for me today. I hope you have an awesome week. Take care. Bye bye.